people are not in touch with this omnipresent thing. It's the coolest thing in the world. Can I tell you a true story? It's just kind of embarrassing, and might want to plug your little kid here. But I got caught doing some naughty stuff when I was about 4 years old. Maybe 5. And my dad sat me down for a father and son talk. And he said, "What were you doing out there in the bushes with that little girl?" Well, I told him. There was only one word for it when I was growing up. And I didn't know the word was wrong. And so I just told him we were.
What? What were you doing?
And so I really remember my dad choking back a laugh. I mean, because here's this innocent little kid who just said the F word, it's like. And he said, "Well, Bobby, Jesus doesn't want us to do that." And I said, "Well, that's okay. He couldn't see me." "What do you mean?" I said, "We were in the bushes. He couldn't see us." And he said, "Oh, Bobby, Jesus can see you anywhere you are." And I said, "Really? Like if I was under the car, he can see through the car and see me under the car?" And he said, "Yes, he can see you under the car." And this was my feeling at 5 years old. Oh, no. I started thinking of everything I'd ever done that I didn't want God to see at 5, and realizing that I was so busted. Well, I just want to tell all of you that did whatever you did last night, you're so busted. Whatever you thought today, you are so busted. Get used to this feeling of God being there. It'll help you be real about who you are and quit trying to fake people out. And you know what? That's the first step in getting healed. You know that? As long as you pretend to be well, you'll never get well. If you've got a cancer today, and maybe some of you here in the room have a cancer, we'll pray for you. But if you pretend you don't have a cancer, it'll kill you a lot quicker. If you have a breast cancer, and you found that lump, and you're just going to say, "That's just a lump of hard fat, I don't think I'll go get it checked out. I don't have breast cancer." You will die from breast cancer. I had a really good friend. She was a lady who lived here in Central Oregon, and she used to be in our worship team, and she got this spot on her arm. And she looked at that spot on her arm, and she thought, "That looks like it could be a cancer, but I don't want to have a cancer. I'm afraid to go to the doctor because I'm afraid that might be a cancer." Guess what? It was a cancer. It was one of the most curable cancers on the planet. It was melanoma. But because she put off going to the doctor, it ate through one layer after another layer after another layer, went into her lymph system and killed her dead. Because she didn't want to look at that. She was afraid that it might be a cancer. I'm going to tell you something. We have some cancers in our spirit, in our mind, in our thinking. And we don't want to admit it. We don't want to look at that. I don't want to be I don't want to be seen as I don't know, you guys fill in the blank. Some of you, maybe you just get your prescription drugs and take all of them in 2 days instead of 2 weeks. Maybe you've got, whatever your issue is. But I'm just telling you, the more you want to hide, the sicker you can be. Here's the interesting thing about this. The omnipresence of God, the Holy Spirit, knows it already. He's not shocked when you tell him what's going on. God is not offended by what's going on with you. He's offended because you won't tell him about it. The problem is not in your behavior. The problem is that you won't take it to God. If you take it to God, not only will he heal the effects of it, he will help you overcome it. God sent the Holy Spirit to reveal the power of Jesus in you. Now, when he says, "Who do men say that I am?" in Matthew chapter 15, one guy gets the answer right. Because the next thing he says is, in verse 15, "And he said to them, 'But who do you say that I am?'" Because it gets very personal. It doesn't matter who men say that he is. It matters who you say that he is. And Peter stands up, and he says, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." Verse 16. "And Simon Peter answered and said, 'Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God.'" He got the answer right. Some of you would get the answer right today. If I said, "Who is Jesus?" You would say, "The only begotten Son of God who died for my sin." Absolutely. Listen to what he says. And Jesus said to him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah." Would you underline this next part? I have it highlighted in my Bible. "For flesh and blood did not reveal that unto you, but my Father which is in heaven." You are blessed to know what you know, Simon, because my Father in heaven revealed who I am to you. If you know Jesus today, you are blessed. But you're blessed because the Holy Spirit told you who Jesus is. I don't care if you were in the woods, on the ocean, in New York City. I pray for you. Whether you were at home, alone, in church, it doesn't matter to God. It really does not matter. The Holy Spirit is going to tell you who Jesus is and give you the opportunity to respond. Once you see who He is, guess what? You can see who you are. You know why? Because when you see who He really is, He loves you unconditionally. You can't do anything to make Him stop loving you. Some of you here have proved that. I'm working on it myself. You can't do anything to make Him stop loving you. No matter how many times you fail, at the end of your last failure, guess what? He still loves you. Well, I can't. Yeah, right. You cannot sin your way out of His love. What can you do? You can break His heart. You can make Him sad. You can grieve the Holy Spirit. But you cannot change the fact that God is love. So once you realize and get hold of that, then you can say, if my behavior is not the key, then I don't have to hide from Him. If I don't hide from Him, then He can be who He really is in my life. And who is He really? He's the one who heals the sick. Are you sick today? Sick spirit, soul, or body? He's the one who raises the dead. Do you have dead things in you? Dreams, hope, aspiration? He's the one who feeds the hungry. You see, Jesus is the same. The only reason you're not experiencing who He is today is because you're not opening up to who He really is and letting the Holy Spirit manifest the real person of Jesus to you. You're holding on to the idea of Jesus as kind of the judge, he's the nice guy in the Trinity. God's mean. You know, God in the Old Testament killed everybody, bad, mean guy. But Jesus comes along, He's a lot easier to get along with. I've got news for you, they're all the same. They're all God of love. And who do men say that I am, and who do you say that I am, are questions that will come up continuously in your life. Getting the answer right doesn't mean that you'll never have another problem. Because later on in the conversation, Jesus begins to teach the disciples. In the same chapter, He says, now you guys need to know something. I'm going to go to Jerusalem, and the chief scribes and the Pharisees, they're going to unjustly judge me, and then they're going to kill me. And Peter, who had just said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God, he says, not so. That'll never happen. Not with me here. Me and my crew, we'll take care of you. And Jesus turns to the guy who got the question right and says, get thee behind me, Satan, because you don't care about the things of God, but the things of men. What happened there? This is what happened. Even though you know who Jesus is, you can get caught up trying to figure things out in the natural and make them make sense in the natural. It didn't make sense to Peter that the Messiah that he thought was going to rule the world would be put to death. And so out of his natural mind and out of his former understanding of who Jesus was to be, the Messiah, he rebukes Jesus. Some of you have been put into situations that God in heaven ordained to bring out some characteristic in you, or so that you can know some part of His will. And when you are confronted with the truth, you say, no way. Your first response is, I will not, cannot receive this as anything God's doing. And Jesus is saying, and I want to say to you, be careful. Be careful, because you get into that ground where you're forgetting that God's ways are not our ways. And that He allowed things in our life for eternal purposes that will change us forever. When Joseph was just a boy, he had these dreams about being a leader. His brothers beat him up, threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. He later went to prison, unjustly accused of rape, attempted rape, spent years in prison. Was any of that anything that you'd want to do? No. But did it fulfill God's